This is a guide for the premium plugin Heroes. In this guide I'll cover installation, basic configuration, and basic commands. And in this guide I'll be assuming that you know how to set up a Minecraft server running either Spigot or Paper Spigot, and that you know how to install plugins. So the very first thing we're going to start off with is downloading the plugin. I'll have all the download pages for the plugin and the dependencies linked in the description, but you're just going to click on the download now button on the Spigot page. If you do need an older version, if your server is running an older version of Minecraft, you can click on version history and download the older versions here. You just want to match the date, whatever date your Minecraft server is from. The first dependency we're going to download is Vault. Heroes won't run without Vault. You need this in your server for it to work. The second one is EffectLib. This is an optional dependency. It is required for skill effects, so if you have hearts or sparkles coming out of any of your skills, I'm going to download it just in case. And the Heroes plugin, this version here, does come with the default skills in the pack here, but if you do need to download them, they are down here. Some versions don't come with them in the pack, some do, and there are premium skills you can download as well. You need to pay extra for those. So now that we have all of our files downloaded, I'm just going to run them onto my desktop here. And we're going to unpack the Heroes folder. Okay, now we're going to open up our server folder, and we're going to drop the Heroes jar and the Heroes configuration files into our plugins folder. And then I'm going to run the two dependencies, Vault and EffectLib. Well, not run, I'm going to push them into the plugins file here. And those are set up, so we're going to run our server now, just to get all the files configured. Alright, so now that the server's started, we're just going to quickly hop onto Minecraft to make sure everything loaded well. So we're just going to type /plugins, and as you can see here, everything is green, meaning we are good to go, so we can disconnect, type stop, we're going to exit, and the first thing I like to do is open up our log. We'll just edit it with our preferred program and look for any errors. So warning, cannot verify Heroes compatibility with your own Minecraft version. That'll pop up on most versions, I won't worry about that, but it looks like Heroes here loaded just fine. So now we're going to jump into our plugins folder and our Heroes subfolder. You're going to notice quite a few configuration files. It might look a bit daunting, but it's actually a lot easier than it seems. We're going to jump into our classes subfolder here, and this is where all the default classes have been generated. You can start off with whichever class you want to edit. The default class is going to be Citizen, so you can just edit that with Notepad. What I like to do normally is just set Citizen to false for the default. And now this class will no longer be the first one your players have when they join the server, and I'm going to hop into a class I actually like to edit, so in this case Rogue. So Rogue is one of my favorite classes. I'm going to set it as the server default so that when somebody joins they are Rogue. Now people will be Rogue to start off with, and if you want to rename the class, you can set it to whatever name you want. So the file is named Rogue, but I could rename the class to anything. Let's just name it Wild, since that's the first word that comes to mind. Now the class in server will be named Wild. And the description here is going to be what people see when they ask for information in the chat about the class. So let's just name this to be the wildest class of all, and now that'll be their description. The parents you see here are going to be used for any class dependencies if you're specializing into a class. I'm going to get more into that later. Primary here, this just means that this is a primary class, basically what the player is going to be working on leveling up to get all their combat skills and whatnot. Secondary is going to be your secondary classes that people use to level up to get things like crafting or healing. So you can get a doctor class or a crafter class. You can set it up the opposite way too if you wanted to, where the primary class is what is typically a secondary and the secondary is a primary. But we're just going to make our lives a bit easier and have Rogue, or in this case Wild, be a primary. Hopping down to permitted armor here. This is going to be the type of armor that the player can wear. So let's say you want to grant them another type of armor. You're just going to add it here. In this case I want to add chain. So just going to add a dash and chain. You can add leather, chain, diamond, iron, and gold. Permitted weapons are going to be the type of tools they can use. So in this case this class is permitted to use all wood weapons, all stone weapons, and from the iron weapons they're allowed to use a pickaxe and sword, but not the hoe, the shovel, or any of those other items. They can also use a gold sword and diamond sword. Let's say you want to allow them to use every single item from every single class. You would just do dash diamond, or in this case you can just remove this. If you want them to have gold, you would just put gold, and iron, you can just put iron. So they have access to all wood, stone, iron, gold, and diamond tools, as well as a bow. I'm just going to remove one of these, for example, in-game. So if you don't want them to have access to gold tools, we'll remove gold. The item damage here is how much damage they do with each individual weapon. So in this case, they're going to do 6 damage with an iron sword, 7 damage with a gold sword, and 8 damage with a diamond sword. You can also add items to this list. So let's say I want them to be able to use a blaze rod, blaze_rod, and the amount of damage I want it to do. Let's say I want it to be a god weapon. We'll set it to 100. And now they're going to do 100 damage every time they swing with a blaze rod. Item damage level is how much the damage is going to go up every time they level up. So if the player is level 1, they kill a mob, enter level 2, they're going to gain an extra 0.2 damage to their diamond sword, which means they'll do 8.2, and that'll stack for each level. So by the time they get to level 5, they're going to be doing 1 extra damage with the diamond sword. Projectile damage, this is just how much damage an arrow will do. It doesn't scale linearly, just because arrows do different damage at different levels of being pulled back. So 5 damage is how much damage it'll do if the bow is fully drawn. If it isn't fully drawn, it'll do a percentage of damage based off the percentage of how far the bow is pulled back. Projectile damage level is the same thing as item damage level, just for arrows in this case. Permitted skills is the skills that you can use from the heroes plugin. So in this case, this class is able to access sneak, jump, mark, and all the other skills you see listed here. Level is the level they gain the skill at. And then we'll jump over to recall here because it has some extra items. So you'll notice this has mana. So when they use this skill, it costs 40 mana. If you want to increase the cost, you can set it to 45. So now the player will use 5 extra mana over the 40 that already existed every time they use recall. Cooldown is going to be how long the skill takes to cool off before they can use it again. So if I use recall, I won't be able to use it for 60 seconds. This is measured in ticks, so 60,000 is equal to 60. If you want it to be 6 seconds, you put it at 6,000. If you want it to be at 10 seconds, you put it at 10,000. So now it's going to take 10 seconds for the skill to cool down before they can use it again. There is also a warm-up, so if you want to add that in here, we're just going to back out because YML files don't like when you tab, and we're just going to put warm-up. So now the warm-up will be how long it takes for the skill to be used after activating it. So they type /skill space recall, and I put 6,000. It now takes 6 seconds for the recall skill to activate, and they will still have a cooldown of 10 seconds after its use. Health cost is how much damage it's going to do to their health when they use it, so in this case it'll take away 10 health. And delay is 5,000. So after it warms up and it gets used, it takes 5 seconds for the skill to be used. If you want it to be 7, let's say 7, and after that delay, you're going to have the 10-second cooldown. It'll be the same for all the other skills, so you just can edit these attributes on the skill. Let's say you wanted to add a skill. What you're going to have to do is figure out all the skill names. A very easy way to do that is to open up your heroes folder, go over to the skills.yml, and you have a list of every single skill here. So let's say you want to add the skill Poison Arrow to Rogue. You're just going to copy the attributes from Poison Arrow, and then we'll just add it at the bottom here. You have to tab each one appropriately. You can get rid of most of the text here. This would just be custom text for the skill that will appear in chat when you use it. You can adjust the text here to have it be a global application, or you can adjust it here so that way it only applies to this class. In this case, I'm just going to remove it because it's more spam that we don't need in the file. So now, there's no level that the class gets us at currently. It'll just get it at level 1. If we want it to get at a specific level, we're going to add the level field, and in this case I want the class to get it at level 50. This would be a master level skill for them. So now the class will receive it at level 50. The skill will last for 10 seconds. The period is 2,000, so when they shoot the arrow at the player, the skill should last for, or not the skill, the poison should last for 2 seconds, while the poison arrow, all the arrows the player shoots, will be poisoned for 10 seconds. Mana per shot is how much mana it will draw from the player every time they shoot an arrow. Let's say we want to raise it, we can throw it to 10. And then tick damage is how much damage it's going to do every time the target gets poisoned. So right now it's at 2, let's say we throw it up to 4, now it'll do 4 damage. So that's a basic coverage of skills. Up next is experience. This is all the ways that players can get experience. You can add other sources such as crafting. So now every time a person who is a rogue or wild class crafts an item, they'll gain experience from it. There are also ways to get experience from breaking blocks and other environmental stuff. You can also remove ways of getting experience. Let's say you don't want them to get experience from PvP. You just remove that option, and a player with this class will no longer get experience every time they kill another player. Only from these sources here. EXP modifier allows you to change this class's EXP curve. So let's say a mob will give you 40 EXP, and the EXP modifier is at 1.0, they'll only gain 40 EXP. If you put it at 2.0, it'll now double that. So instead of gaining 40 experience, they'll gain 80. And then you can do the same with 0.5, so now the class will gain half experience. This is really good for specs, because you want them to level up slower than your primary classes. We're just going to leave it at 1, because it is a default class. Base max health is how much health the class will start with, and max health per level is how much health it'll gain every time it levels up. Same thing for mana, how much mana it has to begin with, mana per level up, and then mana regen here is how much mana it'll regen per mana regen interval, which I believe to start off with is every 3 seconds. It might be different, it's in your configuration file. Mana regen per level is how much the mana regen goes up every level. EXP loss, that'll be how much EXP you lose every time you die. Wildcard permissions, you're just going to leave this on true. This is a permissions-based option. Normally I won't touch that. Tier 1 is what tier the class is. If you set it as tier 2, it won't show up in the paths list when you look up specific classes. It's mostly something you want to use for specs. If you were to make a spec of this class, let's say named Assassin, you would put this class as a dependency for it and set it as tier 2 so it doesn't show up in your default list. And recipes is any recipe the class has access to from the recipes files here for anything that you make there. So the next thing we're going to work on is creating a specialization for a class. So the last class we had worked on was Wild, which the file is still named Rogue. So I'm just going to copy this file and paste it. Now we have a copy of it. I'm going to rename it to what the spec will be. In this case, I'm just going to name the spec Assassin. And now we're going to open this file. And you'll notice it'll have everything that Wild had because it's just a copy of it. So we're going to change the name here to Assassin. And because this is a spec, we do not want it to be default. And the parents are going to be what class dependencies you need to be able to choose this class. So strong are classes that you absolutely need. So in this case, our strong is going to be Wild. And weak would be any classes that they can master and still choose the class. They're not a necessary dependency. So for some cases, you can have multiple classes. So let's say I want them to have to master Mage. You can put Mage here. They don't have to master it, but if they do master it, they can access the class, but they still have to master Wild. You can add multiple weaks. So let's say Warrior is going to be the other one. Now they can master Warrior, and they still have to master Wild. If you remove Wild, they only have to master Mage or Warrior, but not both. So we're just going to remove these. For this option, we're just going to use Wild. So now they have to master Wild to be able to choose Assassin. I'm not sure if I explained that very properly, but you get the idea. The next thing you're going to want to edit is the class's tier. So right now it's tier 1 because it's a spec. I'm going to change it to tier 2. And then you're going to want to give the class more benefits over the class Wild. So in this case, let's say it starts with the max health Wild had when it reaches level 50. I'm not sure what it was. Let's just, that's mana. 0.4. Let's just assume it maxes out at 50. It'll start with 50 health. You can put it lower or higher. And then the amount of health it'll gain per level is 1. So now this class will have more health than its previous class, and it'll gain more health every time it levels up. You can do the same for mana and whatnot and all the other items. You can now add more skills to this class or remove skills. So let's say you don't want Assassin to have access to, which is Recall. So now, while Wild had access to Recall, Assassin does not. And then we can open up our skills folder here and find other skills that we can add. So let's say we want Assassin to have Pickpocket. We can just copy Pickpocket. Oop, didn't want to do that. We'll go back in here, and we'll add Pickpocket. So now we just need to add the right tabs. And this we can get rid of. Actually, we can get rid of most of these. And let's say we want it to gain Pickpocket at a specific level. We're going to set it so they gain it at, let's say level 5. It'll be an early skill. So now Assassin will gain Pickpocket at level 5. Now realistically, any attribute you change will only be changed for Assassin. None of these will affect Wild, but you do have to be Wild to choose Assassin. So let's say I want Diamond Sword to now deal 100 damage and be a god weapon along with Blaze Rod. Assassin will deal 100 damage with a Diamond Sword. You can edit whatever you want here. It's a separate class. You can technically make a mage class that needs Wild to be mastered to choose. You can do whatever you want here. That's the beauty of Heroes. It has full versatility. It's whatever you want it to be. Next, we're going to run into the players folder. This one is fairly simple. It just allows you to edit individual players' classes. So in this case, my class is Wild. If I want it to be Warrior, I would just set it as Warrior. You can also choose this in-game, but the options here just allow you to edit it manually as an admin. There are some other options in there. They're all fairly self-explanatory. Skills, this is just the folder where you drop any extra skills that you buy or the default skills. You can remove skills from your server as well just by deleting them. So let's say I want to get rid of base TNT, deleted it, that's no longer in the server. Storage is just where the plugin stores some extra data. Like let's say you have a plugin to track IMEIs, they'll all show up in there. Configuration is going to be your main, or config will be your main configuration file. This is something you're going to want to toy with a bit. Every server is going to be different. You're going to set your own different, basically EXP curves and then costs for changing classes, you know, like monetary costs or physical item costs. The amount of points that adjusting attributes actually gain. So that way, you know, let's say you increase your strength, how much strength it'll actually give you per increase and whatnot. It's just something that's going to be very personal for your server. If you want to know what each item does, you can go over to the main heroes page here and scroll down to wiki. And then you can go over here to configuration. And this is going to give you a basic breakdown of what most of these do. Some of them aren't listed just because they're not super obvious, but it'll give you a general idea of what you need to do here. Nope, didn't want to exit out of there. There we go. The next one is going to be your damages. This one is also fairly simple. So this is going to be how much HP and damage mobs do. Same with environmental damage. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Chickens will have 4 HP. Where's a zombie? Zombies will have 20 HP and then their damage. So a zombie will deal 4 damage to you. Let's say you want to make a zombie a one-hit killing machine. You would just set that to 100. And let's say you want to increase the health to 150. Now zombies are basically monsters and players will have a very hard time killing them. Let's just set this back. I don't know what it was at before, so I'm just going to take a guess. And where's zombie? I am bad at this. There we go. We're just going to set this to 20. I believe that's what it was at. And let's just use the giant as the one-hit killing machine for now. So now a giant will do 100 HP worth of damage, and whatever health it has here, so 100 health. So 100 and 100 makes it easy. The environmental damage is actually a bit fun to play with, so you can change how much fall damage does, how much fire damage does per tick. So in these cases, what it shows here is a percentage. So 1 will be its default damage, and then you can adjust it up or down. So 2 would be 2 times the default damage. Actually, in this case, 1 is just 1 damage. Over here, this is a percentage base. So cramming, if you get stuffed in a block, 0.3 means it does 30% of your health per hit. Drowning does 10% of your health per hit, and fire does 20% of your health per hit. We're going to move on to experience here. This one's also fairly self-explanatory. This is just how much EXP you get for each event you see here. So if you kill a chicken, you get 1 EXP, a creeper's 23. For farming, you get this much EXP per farming items. This is where you can find the names for specific EXP sources for the class file. So let's say you want a class to get EXP for farming, you just add farming to their experience sources. And then you can adjust these for how much EXP you want each item to give. So let's say somebody's mining and they mine 5, or some coal, they'll gain 5 experience. The next file here is permission skills. This is a fun one. So this one allows you to make skills out of permissions for other plugins. So in this case, I have essentials on my server, and this is a default one, but I'm just going to make a new one here. So this one is going to be called compass. And usage is just going to be the description for the skill. So now when they look at the skills, they say ability to tell direction. And then the permission here is going to be the actual permission it draws from the plugin. So in this case, this permission is drawing from essentials, and let me just find the compass permission for essentials. We'll just do essentials.compass. So now there's a skill named compass, and you can add this skill to your class and do all the same things of cooldown and whatnot that you normally would, but the player can now type /skill space compass if they have this skill, and it'll use the compass command from essentials. Recipes. This is the one where you can add different recipes to classes, so if you give them the swords recipes, they can now craft these specific items here. Fairly basic as well. You just add the item, and it gives them the ability to craft it. Skills.yml. In this file here, you're going to find all of the default, basically, skills that you have installed. So it's going to have a description for each of them and each of the options that they can take use of. So in this case, decay can take use of duration, which means how long the skill is going to last for, and period, how long the effect is going to last on the target player. You have various different options for these. You have to toy around with it to find out what each one does, because there's a million different options that can be added to each skill. Not necessarily a million, but there's a lot of them. So now that we have the server configured to our liking, we're just going to throw the server up and we're going to log in. And the first thing you're going to notice when you log in is this funky sidebar here. For now we can ignore this, but this has all of your character information. So the first thing a player is probably going to do when they join your server is check out what classes you have available. That's always available through hero paths. And you can see that they have access to, in my case, admin, cleric, mage, warrior, wild, and crafter. A default player won't have access to admin or any of your funkier classes that you haven't set them for to have access to. So let's say they want to choose a class. The easiest way for them to do that is always just click on the select option. So in my case, I'm going to want to choose wild, which was the class we had just configured, and click on confirm. This can also be done with the hero choose and hero confirm command, but this is a much easier method. So now that they're playing wild, they might want to know what they're going to be getting into after wild. They can type in /hero specs wild, and these are the classes that they're going to have access to after they have mastered wild. They're also going to want to know about their skills, which can be accessed through /skills, so these are the ones I have at my default level. So backstab will make me deal more damage when I hit an enemy from behind. Let's give myself a diamond sword, and this class has access to this tool. So if you want to see what tools you have access to, you can type in hero tools, and these will show you the specific items. In this case, I had removed access to gold tools from this class, so I gold shovel 1. So now when I try and use a gold shovel, it says I am not trained to use it, so it kicks the item out of my inventory. It actually just throws it into here, but it won't let me use it because I'm not trained to use it. In this case, I am trained to use a diamond sword, so I can use, or any diamond tools in general, I can just throw them in my hotbar and use them at my own leisure. The next thing they're going to do is set up binds for when they use skills. So some skills are passive, like backstab. It'll just work anytime you backstab an enemy. Some skills are not passive, such as sneak. So in this case, I'm going to bind sneak to my sword, just by typing /bind, sneak. And now whenever I right-click on my sword, it'll force my character to sneak. You won't be able to see it on your end, but on the end of my buddy here, he will see me using sneak. So let me just run over to myself. And you'll notice that I am crouching. So the main reason for doing that is so that way the name tag doesn't show up. So when I'm looking through the wall here, you won't be able to see his name. The next thing we're going to look at is attributes. These are the different attributes the class has. You gain attribute points as you level up. So let's say I wanted to increase my strength. I'll just add points, which I can't do right now. Actually, I do have some attribute points, so I'll just apply that. So now I'm going to do more damage with my swords. If you want to get yourself more attribute points, you just have to level up. So in this case, I could just kill mobs to level up. There are no mobs out here right now, so let's spawn mob creeper 1. So there's a creeper here, and when I kill it, I should level up. Put myself in survival. I don't think I gained any experience for that. There we go. Got some experience there, and when I kill the next one, I've leveled up to a level 2 wild. And now I'll have more attribute points, depending on how many attribute points you would set. So right now, you have to level up a few times to gain attribute points. So I'm just going to force myself to level with some admin commands. Hero admin level LkMMoDC wild 30. This will set my wild class to level 30, and I have more attribute points. You'll notice I have a bunch more now. So you can just go through each of these options to choose what you want, but let's say I want to increase my endurance. I can add a few points there. Let's say I want more strength. And then let's say I want more, where's the other one? Dexterity. I can't add any more points because I've used them all. We'll confirm, and now those points have been added. So my endurance, my hunger will last longer, and my strength, I'll be a bit stronger. Each attribute does their own thing. My definition for endurance might have been incorrect there, but you get the idea. Now another option that Heroes has is the ability to create parties. This will allow you to share EXP among your party members and not be able to damage them. So my other friend here is Luckier. Let's say I want to create a party. I'll type /party invite Luckier9056, and when you type this, it'll create a party. So if he needs to join, he can type /party accept LkMMoDC, or he can click on the option. I'm just going to type it out. Actually they removed the party accept option, so I'm just going to click here. Maybe I typed it incorrectly, but now he's in the party. So if I teleport him over to me, and I kill a mob, spawn mob, actually let's make sure his level's reset, hero admin class, LkMMoDC, warrior, hero admin level, LkMMoDC, warrior, 0. Nope, 1. There we go. Spawn mob, creeper, 1. Let's bring up this window here and minimize this one before the creeper explodes. Too late there. Spawn another one. And you'll notice he gained EXP as well as myself, because we're both in the same party. There is a radius, so if I go too far away, let's just fly away. Now when I kill the creeper here, he's not going to gain any experience, even though I am, because he is too far away from me. The next command we want to look at in parties is the ability to check who's in your party. So I'm just going to type in /party who. It'll show everybody who's in here. And if I want to kick someone, party, kick. Luckier, party's been disbanded, he's out of the party. And if you want to leave the party, you can also just type /party leave. And there's no party because there's nobody in here. But if you were in a party, it would remove you from the party. Alright, so now we're going to touch on some admin commands. These commands are quite basic. You've seen me use some of them earlier in the video, but essentially it allows you to force a player into a class or level their experience, even skills they have on that class. I'm going to touch on some of the basic ones. The first one is hero, admin, and then class, and then the player name, and then what class you want to force them to be. So let's say I want them to be mage. This is going to force Luckier9056 to be a mage, and then hero, admin, level is going to adjust their level, so we'll choose the player, Luckier, and then their class, mage, and let's max out the level, so now he is a master mage. You can then remove the levels if you want to. 5, he's no longer a master mage, and you can mess around with it at your own leisure. You can also do it through experience, so if we do hero admin exp, Luckier9056 mage, and then 5,000, is going to give him 5,000 experience, and it will put him to whatever level that would push him to. Doing levels a bit easier, but EXP can be good if you're trying to reward a player for, let's say, completing an event. You can have a command block set to give them experience. That has been a basic overview of the Heroes plugin. If you do have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video, or on the discussion page on the Heroes plugin itself. Questions here normally get answered fairly quickly. I'll be looking through the thread myself, and then there are people like Kinzo and other developers and other helpful people on here who are willing to help. So that's been all. Hopefully I helped you guys out, and have a good one.